Gabriel Mercer, and I still remember the night I first saw her. That night changed everything. My heart, and almost my life. It happened 10 years ago, in a coastal town where the wind always smelled of salt and old secrets. Was 30, restless, searching for something I could only name much later. I'd spent the afternoon driving a slick, rain-slick road out to the old Harrington estate, a crumbling manor on the cliffs above the gray ocean. The drive felt endless, the sky growing darker with each mile. My car headlights carved twin beams through the gathering mist as I turned off the main highway, down a narrow lane, overhung with gnarled oak limbs. In the rearview mirror, branches brushed against the glass like ghostly fingers. When I reached the rusted gates, they swung open at my touch, though their hinges hadn't moved in years. The gravel drive crunched under my tires as I made my way to the rear, where an empty reflecting pool lay beneath the shattered skylights. Moonlight pooled in broken panes, illuminating the cracked marble tiles and the pool's parched bowl. I stepped out of the car with my camera bag slung over my shoulder. Film, cameras, tripods, and my notebook of ideas. The manor had been abandoned for decades. Yet rumor said someone still wandered its halls. I planned a late-night shoot to capture the manor's decay, its grandeur dying in the salt air. Just one night's work. I didn't expect to find a soul. That's when I saw her, at the edge of the pool, dressed in white that shimmered like ghost silk. She sat with her back to me. Rain had darkened her hair, clinging to her shoulders in damp tendrils. Her head tilted toward the horizon, as if she listened to some distant call. I raised my camera with a swift motion. Its shutter crack echoed in the stillness. Her silhouette stirred, but she did not turn. In that moment, I should have run, should have laughed off my own nerves, but I was entranced. There was something in her stillness, a liquid sorrow that pulled me forward. I took another photo. The flash lit her face for half a heartbeat, pale skin, hollow eyes edged with salt, lips parted as though to speak. Then she vanished, melting back into the manor's darkness, as if she had been a trick of light. Shaken, I reviewed the frame on my camera screen. The image was stunning and impossible, a ghost's reflection trapped in a decaying world. The woman was there, clear as day, even though I had seen nothing when I lowered the camera. I packed my gear with trembling hands and left. By the time I reached my car, rain had begun to fall again, erasing my tire tracks as if the ground itself wished to forget. Over the next week, I couldn't sleep. The image haunted me. I returned every night, lugging cameras, lights, and film. With each visit, the manor revealed more of its secrets. A grand ballroom drained of water, chandeliers stained with rust, corridors lined with peeling wallpaper patterned in rose vines, rooms where furniture lay sunk in decay. Yet always, she returned to that pool's edge. At first, she sat in the same spot, silent. Then, one night, she turned. I didn't see her face until I peered through the viewfinder, eyes as dark and fathomless as storm clouds. She stared at me, a single frame captured before I blinked. Her gaze met mine across the distance of broken marble and rotting wood. I stepped forward. The air was thick with mist. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "Who are you?" I whispered. She did not speak. Instead, she rose and glided toward the manor's entrance, her white gown trailing across the stone. Each step was measured, as if she followed an invisible rhythm. I followed her through halls where paint curled like dead skin. I followed her past ornate fireplaces cold for years, past shattered mirrors reflecting my own anxious face. We emerged in a great hall where moonlight poured through a broken skylight. She stood beneath the glass, the night sky fracturing her silhouette. I clicked my shutter again. The sound startled her, and she turned fully toward me. In her eyes I saw entire stories. Love and loss, betrayal and longing. "Tell me your name," I said, voice cracking. She reached up, brushing a tendril of hair from her face, and opened her mouth as though to answer. But no words came. Instead, she placed a single finger against her lips, pressing shushing motion. And then she was gone. I ran back to my car, breath ragged, camera forgotten. My film lay unopened on the passenger seat, a promise of answers I dared not discover. Over the next days, I debated contacting friends, sharing my photos. But fear kept me silent. I worried the world would call me mad, dismiss me as a ghost chaser. Finally, curiosity won. I developed the film in my dark room, red lights painting my hands blood orange. Each frame emerged, the pool, the halls, the manor's lonely glory, and her, ghostly in one frame, translucent in another, shifting like water itself. In one final negative, I saw her face full on, eyes dark as midnight, lips curved in a sad smile. On the back of that print, I scrawled a single word in pencil: "Stay." I should have left it then, but the manor called me back. Something in those photos pulled me north under a harvest moon. So I returned, this time with more lights, more cameras, a crew of 2 close friends who believed in my vision, or perhaps believed in ghosts too. We set up under the skeletal remains of a grand chandelier. I positioned strobes to catch each drop of water falling through the broken roof. Helena, what I began to call her, emerged as always. My friends kept distance as I approached, but I spoke to her as one might to a lost wanderer. "I want to help you," I said. Her eyes flashed. A breeze stirred voices in the hall, like distant singing. She traced a pattern in the air, indexing memories I could not see. Then, with a wave of her hand, the chandelier fragments pulsed with light, and the roof fell silent once more. In my camera, I captured the moment she stepped into the circle of light. Her face serene, yet grave. She wore tears like diamonds. I lowered my camera, fearing I would break the spell. "Why are you here?" I asked. She lifted her chin, her eyes reflecting the strobe's cold glow. No answer came, but lightning flashed through the broken skylight, illuminating a single word scrawled on the chandelier beam. "Remember." I felt it in my bones that I had trespassed into someone's memory. The manor was her story, and I had become its only living witness. But what story? I had captured her sorrow, yet the answer slipped away, like shadows at dawn. Over the next weeks, I pored over every frame. I consulted local historians, chasing rumors of tragedies that befell the Harrington family. A bride lost at sea, a painter who went mad with grief, a child who vanished in the storm, but none matched my phantom muse. I grew desperate. One stormy night I returned alone. Rain pelted the cracked windows, thunder shook the halls. Lightning lit statues of angels whose wings had crumbled. I found the reflecting pool, now refilled by the downpour, and there she waited. I darted forward, splashing through water that reached my calves. She watched me approach, like an oracle guarding a secret. My voice trembled as I spoke. "Helena, what do you want me to remember for the first time?" She spoke, not with words, but with a touch. She took my hand, cold as marble, guiding me down a submerged staircase I hadn't seen before. Each step echoed in the empty chamber until we reached a hidden door. I flung it open and found a small room, walls lined with paintings, portraits of a young woman in a white gown, a man in naval uniform, and in the final frame, a mariner clutching a locket. Water dripped from the ceiling, warping the canvases into rippling dreams. She pointed to the locket painting. I pried it from the frame. Inside lay a miniature portrait, her fiancé's face smiling in better days. I opened it to reveal a lock of hair bleached to silver by salt and time. Tears filled my eyes as I understood. Helena had died waiting for her beloved's return. Her sorrow had anchored her spirit to this place, and I was the keeper of her grief. To set her free, I would have to return her locket to the sea. I carried the locket to the cliff's edge, waves crashing below, like the roar of fate. Rain washed over me as I whispered goodbye. I closed my eyes and let the locket slip from my fingers. It glowed briefly in the lightning flash before plunging into the abyss. The next morning, the manor lay silent. I returned with my crew to film its last moments. No sign of Helena, no footprints by the pool. Only a single photograph remained on my camera screen. An empty chair facing the dawn, and the faintest reflection of a woman finally at peace. I left the Harrington estate that day, my heart heavy, but lighter than it had been in years. My photos won awards and people called me visionary. But I knew the truth. Some stories begin in shadows and end in light. Some loves transcend even the boundaries of life and death. Whenever I feel lost, I remember that night, the mist on the pool, the soft brush of a ghost's hand, the promise of release, because I learned that to capture beauty is one thing, but to free it is another art entirely. And that, dear listener, is why I will never point my lens at anything but the truth of a heart in pain and the hope of its release. I'm Dr. Samuel Hartley, and I once believed that love and loss belonged solely to the living. But one autumn evening, wandering beneath a rosewood sky, I discovered those boundaries are far more fragile than we ever imagined. I'd moved to Ashford, Vermont, to teach literature at the old Montague Academy. Its red brick walls a beacon of ivy and history, its windows glowing with midnight oil. My office overlooked the courtyard fountain, where students once gathered beneath lanterns. Now, in October's chill, the fountain lay dry, its basin cracked like faded parchment. One evening, after grading essays by lamplight, I paused at the window, mug in hand, to watch leaves swirl over fallen mortar. That's when I saw her, a woman in charcoal morning dress drifting across the courtyard, her silhouette slim, her hair pinned back in a 1920s coil. My breath caught. The academy had been rebuilt after a fire in 1923. The only woman said to have perished was its headmistress, Eleanor Delacour. I returned to my desk, heart hammering, convinced I'd imagined her. But night after night I saw her apparition, gliding by the broken fountain, pausing beneath the arch of stone lilies, turning her face to the moon, eyes hollow with longing. I knew I should document my sighting, alert colleagues. Instead, I slipped on my coat and stepped into the cool night, camera in hand. The oak doors groaned as I descended the marble stairs. Lanterns flickered along the corridor, their glow wavering like candle flames in wind. In the courtyard, the fountain loomed, ghostly. I raised my camera and clicked. No flash, just a soft whir. And there she stood, 2 steps away, her mourning veil drifting in an unseen breeze. She vanished before I could lower the lens, leaving only a wisp of her scent, damp earth and rose petal. My journal that night recorded trembling script. I have become her witness. Over the next week, I returned nightly. I brought fresh film, a lantern to chase back the shadows, and an old love letter I found in the archives. Eleanor's farewell to a fiancé lost at sea. Studying the letter by lantern light, I read, "My dearest William, the sea's depths cannot drown my vows. I wait beneath these lilies for your promised return. Forgive me if I grow old before your ship's sails reappear." On the 7th night, lantern in hand, I spoke softly into the darkness. "Eleanor, I know your story. Let me help you find peace." A crisp wind sank around me, and the urn of the fountain rattled. She emerged, spectral and gray, her mourning dress shimmering, her hollow eyes fixed on the letter in my hand. I lifted it, voice catching. "This letter, it never reached him. Let me carry your words to the ocean's edge." With a tilt of her head, she beckoned. I followed her path through arches of rustling vines and across the frozen fountain steps until we reached the Academy's western gate. There, she pointed toward the distant shore where the Connecticut River slipped into the night. I loaded my car with film, the letter wrapped carefully in oilskin, and drove through winding lanes to the riverbank. Mist rose from the water like spirits escaping their tombs. I reached the old stone quay where ships once docked. With steady hands, I pressed the letter into the river's current, watching it drift beneath moonlight. A sudden swirl of wind tugged at my coat. In that breath, I glimpsed her form rising from the water's edge, her face softening, sorrow melting into serenity. She placed one hand over her heart and offered a sad, grateful smile before sliding back into the mist. Alone, I packed away my camera. The following night, I returned with a lantern and lens, but the courtyard lay empty. No flicker of mourning dress, no echo of her footsteps on cracked marble. In my dark room, I developed the film. One frame captured her clear as day, Eleanor Delacour, standing before the fountain, autumn leaves swirling at her feet. In the margin, scribbled in pencil, I found a single word I never wrote. "Thank you. I now teach young minds of Dickens and Shelley, but each time I pass that courtyard, I remember the night I walked with a ghost and delivered love across a century. Some stories begin with shadows and end in light, and some loves, even when lost to time, simply wait for someone brave enough to listen." I'm Dr. Eleanor Blake, and I've spent my life chasing the echoes of history through dusty archives and crumbling manuscripts. But nothing prepared me for the night I unraveled a love story buried beneath centuries of silence, one that reached out from beyond the grave to rewrite my own fate. Autumn's whispered, was late October when I arrived at Ravenswood Manor, hired to catalog its dilapidated library before the estate passed into new hands. The manor perched atop a windswept hill in northern Maine, its red roof half hidden by gnarled oaks that shed flame-colored leaves at every breeze. Locals said the house had stood empty for 50 years, ever since its owner, Captain Thomas Ainsley, vanished at sea along with his bride, Lenora. I entered through the east wing's grand double doors, their paned glass warping moonlight into fractured patterns on the flagstone hall. My lantern revealed endless shelves of leather-bound journals, ledgers marred by salt streaks, and dozens of unopened letters tied with faded ribbon. I felt history stir under my fingertips. That first night as I leafed through a ledger in the library's bay window alcove, I sensed someone watching. My lantern's glow trembled, and I glimpsed a motion out of the corner of my eye. A figure in period dress drifting between shelves. I snapped a photo. The click of my camera echoed like a gunshot in the hush. I peered at the image, the translucent outline of a woman in white, her face turned away. The silent bride. Over the next week, I pieced together their story. Captain Ainsley had returned from his final voyage, clutching a precious sapphire, a gift for Lenora on their first anniversary. His logs spoke of storms and whispers on the wind. In one entry, he wrote, "Lenora, if the sea ever claims me, know that my love sails on to you." His last page trailed off into smudged ink, as if tears had fallen across the paper. At dusk each evening, I found myself drawn to the ruined conservatory, its glass roof shattered, vines strangling its pillars. There, amidst broken fountains and fallen statues, I saw her, Lenora, gazing up at the darkening sky. A sapphire glint at her throat. Her eyes met mine once, when I dared approach, revealing depths of sorrow that chilled my soul. Dance of shadows. One midnight, driven by curiosity and an inexplicable longing, I carried the sapphire from Captain Ainsley's logbook display to the conservatory center. I whispered her name, Lenora. The gem glowed faintly in the lantern light. As I held it, a soft melody drifted through the broken glass. A waltz played on a phantom piano. Lenora stepped forward, gliding across leaf-strewn marble. She extended her hand, beckoning me to join. My heart pounded, yet I knew each step carried me deeper into her story. We danced, a slow, trembling circle beneath the moon, her form like mist at my side. The price of memory. When dawn broke, the conservatory lay silent. Lenora had vanished, but in her place lay the sapphire, cold and still. I pocketed it and hurried back to the library, desperate to record every detail before the memory faded. That day, I discovered a final letter behind a loose brick. Lenora's own words. She had awaited her husband's return at the manor's gate for weeks, wearing the sapphire as testament to her faith. When he never returned, she took her life by stepping into the storm-lashed sea, intending to join him beyond the horizon. Rest at last on. My last night at Ravenswood, I carried the sapphire to the cliff's edge, where restless waves crashed against jagged rocks. I whispered a promise. Your love has been heard. With trembling fingers, I released the gem into the dark water. A swirl of phosphorescence flared briefly, as if Lenora's spirit accepted my offering. Returning to the manor, at first light I opened the library for the new caretakers. On my desk, lay a single uncaptioned photograph I'd taken in the conservatory. An empty dance floor bathed in moonlight, with two footprints etched in dew, hers and mine, lingering long after the dance had ended. Now I teach my students that history lives in every whisper of fallen parchment and every shadow that stirs in an old estate. But sometimes the past reaches back through time, seeking the heart brave enough to carry its story home and to set its lovers free.